new thing we're doing where we are live streaming painting a picture. This one we started this morning. Working title is Forest Hazards. In the morning we were able to get the mushroom people, monsters, this grass, the gnome's clothes. We still have to do his skin. I still have to give him ears. So right now we're just trying to figure out what to do for his skin. I just made one, but I don't think it fits 100%. We'll just and I think I made the same color. This one's a little closer. So we will put in some, hang on, which one was that? Of the titanium white. Something I always like to do when I paint is a lot of times my color mixes are on the fly. So usually I try to make sure I paint everything I'm going to paint with that color, because there's no guarantee that I'm going to actually remember what combination made what did I mix together to make that color, to make it again. Looks like we have a viewer. Well now, don't be shy. Come say hi. So I don't kind of look like a crazy person talking to myself for like an hour. Oh, hello, Leander. Okay, there we go. Now, only the people who saw the morning stream, by the time we get done, they're not going to know that this gnome didn't always have ears. I was worried about like the stream getting in trouble because I was almost tempted to just quote the Family Guy Bob Ross thing. It's like, if you tell anyone that that bush is there, it's like, or just all of a sudden he is threatening to cut the viewer. Like, so very not Bob Ross. It's a classic. I need to figure out a better combination so the skin comes out lighter. It doesn't have a violent. I don't have a violent bone in my body. As I look over and see, I have the Splatterhouse remake and Dead Rising. Well, I guess I don't have a real world violent bone in my body. That gnome has a very small nose for a gnome. Actually, this whole thing is making me think of. I saw this once on Cartoon Network in the 90s. Only saw part of it. I ended up watching the rest later. It was about. It was a Christmas story about a troll prince. Why didn't I use this? This looks better. We'll just give him some. There we go. We'll just give him kind of a cheruby kind of blush that you can't really see. And one of the most bizarre things about the special was that one big theme of it was the troll prince didn't act like the other trolls. To the point he ended up becoming so nice and so good, he was literally not turning into another creature. Like, it's. Especially literally goes so far as to basically say that the troll prince he literally runs into humans who give him a tiny little Bible, and by the end of the story, it's the same color. He converts to Christianity, turns into a tiny human, runs away, and then goes to live with some gnomes. I think I remember. I watched it on Cartoon Network. the end of it, and I remember rehearing about it on, I don't know the name of the channel. I know his series is called Familiar Faces. We did like this compilation of forgotten Christmas specials. It's the same one also featured like a lost Christmas special, which was literally about the world becoming like a terrible place because somebody stole Santa's magic bag, and then in the context of the special, they reveal that the reason the bag is magical is that apparently it was made from the swaddle the baby Jesus was wrapped in. It sounds like it sounds like if there was such a thing as a Christmas fanfic, that kind of definitely sounds like it. God, does anybody remember fanfics? Remember they've always been around, but they were huge and like they felt so big in like the early 2000s, mid 2000s. Some of them actually were actually really cool. Like you could tell some of these were like people who did like creative writing who were cutting their teeth on these kind of projects in their spare time. Making something unofficial with an established work to help kind of build up your skills for writing an original thing. Oh, I just saw that, Oleander. I guess the thing about fanfics is they're kind of like creepypastas now. Anybody can write one, and anyone can write one, and to this day, you still have a degree of anonymity when you do it. It's kind of like if, unless you tell people you wrote it, you could like, you could write a story about like, well, I guess in my case, you could probably tell it was me if I wrote a story about a monster and then a couple days later you see a very similar looking monster in a picture on a paint stream. So yeah, I guess maybe you could tell, but at least with creepy pastas, I they're even if you go the most cliche route possible, they can be kind of difficult to write because I've read some good ones that did have a bunch of cliches in them, but they still ended up being really good stories. They're just really entertaining. Some I've read once and I was never able to find them again. Either they got deleted from the wiki or like they had like the most generic name ever. I remember a military one which was talking about finding this facility, and in the facility, oh my god, I felt like I was turning into chills for a second. Maybe I could do it. Hang on. In the story, there is a facility. They find notes about an attempt to create the ultimate killing machine. This creature is described as being a cross between a man and a scorpion. I can do better. Hang on. Number 15. There we go. Okay. And near the end of the notes in the story, the creature asks, "What was I created for?" And the scientist tells him, "You were created to kill." And so he says, "If that's what I was created for, that's what I will do." And the implication is that the violence and the remnants of the destroyed facility were the creature living up to its life's purpose. Now I'm tempted anytime I talk about a creepypasta to just do it like that till somebody says stop. There's only one we only have only Anders, so uh hang on, I'm thinking of a oh, there's one. There was a creepypasta about a guy finding a computer game. The game was really creepy, but near the end of the story, his computer stopped working. And when he opened up the computer, somehow a whole dead crow had ended up inside it. I don't know about you, but I think I would notice if someone put a dead crow inside my tower. Um, I kind of want to try to read one while painting, but I'm using the same computer, using the same phone to do a live stream. Or I remember there was one. It was like a compilation list done by like I think his name is Phantom Strider and Hoodoo Hoodlum's Revenge of bad Disney creepypastas. And one of them they did not realize was actually a Deltarune fanfic. Okay, I'm thinking. Okay, I think I've got another one. It was oh, this one I actually read on an attempt at a creepypasta narration channel. It was called Subject, and then it's just a bunch of letters and numbers, the Human Torch. In the story, we get the recapment of a man working for the U.S. military while serving under a general. He ends up getting a special call and discovers that the general had been keeping a secret about military experiments. These experiments included a man who created a special virus that caused him to combust into flames. As a result, he ended up getting out of the lab, and the seemingly unstoppable fire began spreading. The final line is talking about how, thanks to the general, the main protagonist fled to Mexico and heard about how the country was burning and that he could not escape the smell of smoke. Ben Drowned is my favorite creepypasta only because I remember back when it wasn't an ARG size, good times. Oh, three English gentlemen who read tarot. I think I've seen those guys actually. I think I think they actually read. Wait, I know what video you're talking about. Where they actually did read some stuff from Slime Beast, and I gotta stop myself, otherwise I'm not gonna be able to stop talking like chills. It's like the same thing where when I first discovered Red Letter Media, I started talking like Mr. Blanket when I would complain about stuff. And after a while, it started kind of turning into my natural speaking voice, so I had to stop it. And now it's turning into Mr. Plills. Oh, the Deltarune thing is probably it. Uh, Honestly, the only weird thing about his stories was how uh, it kind of felt a little like some of them were just sort of based off an initial idea and then just kind of going off it from there. The one I remember was called Whimsy Wood, and I found the story kind of confusing. It was about a kid who convinces his parents to go to a creepy theme park called Whimsy Wood. When he gets there, the place is creepy. There are cameos from things from older Slime Beast stories, as well as a creepy encounter in a petting zoo with a dead chicken. Upon going on the ride, the protagonist remarks about a strange event where he appears to be the only member of the ride who survived. When going to talk to his parents, it almost seems like their minds have been completely evaporated. Like something in the park was kidnapping the children so it could eat them and then erasing the parents' minds. Weirdly enough, I'd still say one of the kings of the narrations was Satin's Guard. And even then, he mainly would just do stuff with text to speech. What the heck? That looks like a 2. There were. Nope. As soon as I acknowledged it, it went away. It's like deer. Yes. Yes, I am. I didn't mean to. It's just For some reason, that guy's voice is so easy to imitate. Which is weird because it's kind of like you're purposefully having to talk different. It's kind of like, if you've ever seen Xavier Renegade Angel, the way he talks is kind of what it makes me think of. But even then, that is purposefully disjointed. To be fair, that show is also incredibly trippy. Think for people who may have somehow just saw it and tuned into the morning one. I think I spent like 20 minutes talking about PFR and like their weird. I should not have done these little branches. Because now I'm gonna have to paint the sky around them. I read the first chapter. I don't want to read the first in the Chill's voice. I'm not sure if that's hilarious because it misses the point or if it's funny as in WTF. I think that probably would be interesting to hear. I need to actually reread either the comic or the movie. Okay, I think I can do one. We can't slow down here. This is Bat Country. I remember there was a. I remember that there was a point that the Creepypasta Wiki got like really irritated by the fact that so many people were just writing the same, not so much the same genre of stories, but how they all felt the same, or they were trying to kind of capture the feel of another popular story. It's like like they just kind of assumed every single one with SpongeBob was trying to be either Sponge Cry or Squidward's Really Bad Day. That's the YouTube safe title. Squidward's Really Bad Day. I think I remember between that there was the other one, Red Mist, where it went into like. I remember apparently there's even a point where in the story they described in the midst of Squidward's kind of psychotic downward spiral, they talk about how Amazing Grace is playing in the background. Like it has nothing to do with anything that's going on. And how I think I remember that apparently somebody for the longest time it had this troll entry on it where they literally it was just the Loch Ness monster skit from South Park. It's like, oh whoops. Or I remember there's one Zelda story I still hunt down and read every now and then. I think it may have been translated from Russian. It was called Link's Awakening, and the idea was that this guy found this hacked ROM of Link's Awakening where the island wasn't right, and near the end it was revealed that Link was apparently sent in that version of the game. The island is a prison with people on death row, and Link volunteered to be the executioner. And then it's like describing things that I think literally people who talked about it go, half the stuff they're describing would not even be possible to do in like pixel art for the Game Boy. I always think it's funny how periodically we'll get two people, then I'll do something to scare them away, and we'll go back down to one person. I don't think I've read Happiness for Sale. There's one called I think was really funny was when YouTube was cracking down on certain words in the title cards, in the titles of the videos. So they would put the stars in. And one of the funniest things to me was sometimes I used YouTube Downloader to download one of the stories, and apparently the star was not registered in the title. So for the longest time, I had downloaded a story that was supposed to be called "We Found a Dead Clown in the Woods," and so because it removes the dash, it literally said, "We found a dad clown in the woods." I think the other one was we should have never made holograms of dead celebrities. And so that looks like we should have never made holograms of dad celebrities. I'm just playing in the paint now. Like there was some creepy pasta that were only in Spanish. And when they would be translated, it would be Google Translate. So there would be kind of moments where there would still randomly be words in another language because it may not have been spelled right. Uh, Like one that's literally just been called Origin de Toy Story. Like the, like apparently the origin of Toy Story. I think I do think one of the more interesting creepypastas in terms of like watching the evolution of the kind of story the writer wanted to tell. Definitely would definitely be the Puppet Master's regime, because okay, that story goes from a very kind of lost episode esque feel of about a mysterious play that only played one night, and a mysterious thing happened, and that's just shrouded in mystery. And then you get into the next story, which tries to go into the background of the making of the play, and then that goes into like some really horrible, terrible, as in tonally, real world horrors that I'm not going to mention here. They're bad, I'll just say that. But then tries to wrap the story back around to the more supernatural element in the final part of it. It's just interesting to kind of see what the author was going for with that story. Yes, listen to Oleander. 'll probably not do these parts yet. That's because I'm just going to have to touch that back up again. 1999 is another one that Definitely feels like you could kind of tell that the author's writing skills kind of evolved over time. Or it goes some more just kind of like recanting this event involving this obscure kid show that was produced out of some guy's basement. Like strange things happened. And then like the final lead in was that the guy doing it was like a psycho Satanist who was like doing like like a sacrificial ritual. I think I've joked about this before because now I think the big thing are are stories from No Sleep, and there are some good No Sleep stories. But the thing that always gets me about those is how some of those have these really like specific titles. Like we found a dead clown in the woods. The main villain was basically a reactive Satanist. Yes, there's a difference between reactive and Leviathan. Interesting. It's kind of like there was one where somebody had kind of written their own kind of abandoned by Disney spin-off story called Treasure Island. And one of the things that's a little, I don't know if I don't know if this is just because of the narration I heard of it or if this was actually how it was written initially. But there's a point where the writer literally keeps referring to the guys. I heard he was a satanic, or he was a satanic. It's like no, it's like it's like you just kind of almost want to shake the author and go Satanist. Like satanic just means it's of him. A Satanist is someone who worships him. Later on, they actually did change that. Interesting. Like the Treasure Island one does have the picture from that story still legitimately freaks me out. Like, I know it was like a Photoshop illustration, but it's like this Snow White whose eyes have gone white. Its mouth is open, like kind of like that, and the neck is just completely tilted, is stretched and tilted like that. That's one of those things that look like legitimately unsettling, which is really difficult to do to a horror veteran. I always think this kind of whatever. Ooh, it still scares people. It doesn't even look human. Like Jeff the unaliver, the picture, the original go to sleep picture, legitimately looks like something your mind would throw together when you were half asleep at like 4 in the morning. Like you wake up for a second, your mind just creates this thing, and then it disappears. It's like I remember one time I woke up. This was back when I was in like high school, and I woke up and like for a few seconds, it wasn't sleep paralysis because I had one of those like above ground beds, suspended air beds, and so I just kind of looked over, and for like a short moment, there was this. It was kind of like the Slender Man, but its suit was more of a like a reddish pink, and its skin was more of a greenish, light green. Like it just kind of stared at me and then went away. I don't know. Maybe I was listening to a lot of stories about him or what. I just something that kind of appeared and then vanished. You know, that's kind of how I see Jeff the bad boy. It's just the go to sleep picture. Like I said, it's just it looks like something your mind would have thrown together randomly when you woke up at like 4 in the morning. And you just look at the low light, and for a brief second, your mind just makes this creature coming at you, and then you just kind of wake up. I kind of imagine what it's like for people who just kind of tune into this stream for a little bit and then leave. I always feel like it's probably in the middle of like when I'm saying something really weird or bizarre or very strange without context. Careful, careful. Calculating diagnosis. You seem to be suffering from Sean's syndrome. If anybody ever is curious, just look up a video called So Extremely Itchy. It's a very interesting animated piece. And you too will wish Gordy was your doctor. Get out of here. I will make you part of this painting if you come back. A random thought. I think you could probably make a pretty interesting horror game just based around the apartment of I think that's either the Collier or the Collier brothers. The two like reclusive, crazy guys who ended up hoarding themselves back in like the 30s or the 40s. Like you could probably make an interesting game around. Like you could set it maybe uh, during the days when Homer and Langley they had both died in the apartment, so it'd be kind of interesting if it was a horror game where it was people trying to do like explore the apartment, and the idea is that their ghosts had like there's like they're like these two like skeletal looking guys are skulking around in these like hoarding nightmare of an apartment. And, the whole point is to try to get out of there before they catch you. And you could have kind of like that, like Friday the 13th moment at the end. It's like, but we saw them. It's like, according to the police, the point you guys went in there, the colliers had been dead for several days. I need to start making a shopping list. Imagine one day I'm gonna find like the magic hour to do this. I just kind of ran out of stuff to say for a little bit. Well, we're over an hour and we're getting closer to done. kind of had for a moment this image of like a channel like only Oni pays, but it's the same people having the same conversation. It's just one guy starts painting. I just had this image that as soon as somebody suggests like a hypothetical, they're just gonna start. They ruin their painting because they start painting the thing they're talking about. I may need to do something about that. No, I'm sure. A podcast. I've actually never heard of the last podcast on the left. Thank you. I think I can count all the podcasts I've listened to on like one hand, and all of them are usually like associated with a YouTuber. Uh, One of the first ones was there was a YouTuber called, well, this guy called the Cinema Snob who would like look at adult movies and exploitation films, and he started a podcast with this one random guy who they would talk about movies and stuff, and that podcast actually ended a couple years ago. It was called Radiodrome. And they would do some actually pretty interesting, like, cool. They would do some really cool retrospective stuff. And mixed in with, like, arguing. I would have thought they were about horror films since, the title is a play on Last House on the Left. Oh, yeah, the other podcast I remember listening to was back when we still had the Switcher, the Super Best Friends. They had a podcast called the Super Best Friend Cast where they would talk about like game and movie news. I think the last one was a YouTuber named Rebel. And my microphone piece of my headset is all the way down here. I have no idea how long it's been down there, so there's a good chance nobody has been hearing me for an hour. about like animation and video games, and they once did a podcast episode that featured one of the old YouTube guys, Mike Mozart of Jeepers Media. And the thing that a lot of people that they pointed out was this idea that this was apparently during a point where he was telling this story about how he had gotten to, when you look back on his stories about this, it's some of it seems a little sus. Like he was friends with Joe Ranft, who had his own little head canon for like the origin of Woody that he never told anyone except this guy, or how, he went to the Pixar studio, but oh, John Lasseter doesn't remember meeting him because he was asleep. And this is before those scandals came out. It's kind of one of those things where the more you look back on it, the more it really does seem a little suspicious about the idea that so you claim that you were around for all of these things, yet when we ask these people, you said you were met, and they say they don't remember you. You always have a thing for that. Oh well, he was asleep. He was napping on the couch when I came in, so he didn't know it was me. Like there was a point at the beginning of that, and this is years ago, where I was more in the I was more in the camp of that. Initially these things, this is all possible. Like there are things where it's like it's entirely possible that you know even in like the tight, even like the most close group of creatives, they all probably have ideas they don't tell each other. They have their own like personal project. I think in the same podcast, he also talked about how he worked on a lot of the 80s cartoons and was like a stand in voice actor. I think he also, like you said, a stand in uncredited voice actor, just kind of there to fill in one role. Like, there are things about it that I think I said this already, but there are things about it looking back now that are more sus than Among Us. I wonder if anyone has said that before. They probably have. And now if his hat were red, he'd be the meme. Oh yeah, I've seen a couple bits from when SNL just started out. Uh, I did see the I did hear some stories about some of. Apparently, there's a point where Bill Murray and Chevy Chase didn't get along, and apparently there's an old story going around that they started fighting right before the show started, and then literally as the curtain went up, they stopped fighting. Dusted each other off. Like, that sounded wrong. They cleaned up real quick, acted like nothing happened. Like just that's sort of like a really admirable level of professionalism. Like I hate you, but I will tolerate you for an hour while we. I hate you, but I will tolerate you for an hour while we work on this show together. Which I think that happens to a lot of like duos and ensembles. Oh, speaking of duos, I did find out Kenan Thompson got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Good for him. He deserves it. It is kind of cool. He started out on All That, which was like the kid version of Saturday Night Live, and then he grew up in oh yeah, an episode hosted by George Carlin. I did see one from the newer season. It was like a holiday bake-off challenge, and it had Eddie Murphy. It was like making a holiday cake based around a Christmas memory, and Eddie Murphy had a cake that was based. He said was based on Sonic the Hedgehog, and the cake he makes ends up being this nightmarish thing with human teeth that at one point lights itself on fire and starts speaking in demonic tongues. It's amazing. There's one they said that was deleted that was like cut for time. It had Michael Keaton. It was like this parody of Blue's Clues or Pee Wee's Playhouse about this guy who was basically hosting a show in his own home and had hired actors to be the furniture. And then one day a repo man comes up and he starts hauling people away. Like, it goes really crazy from there. random fact, I have never seen the first Wreck-It Ralph or the second. Though I've heard the second isn't very good. I've heard of it. I don't think I've ever actually seen anything from Of Living Color in living color. I'll have to check it out. I actually miss I I know the basics. It's about a villain in a game who feels underappreciated, so he jumps into another game where he becomes a hero, and then he has to help this glitchy character in this game try to become a playable character. And like, I know enough about it. The only thing I'd ever want to know for sure is I know that there's that one meme of Ralph looking over at this demon looking dude, and the text just says, "Thanks, Satan." Like, is that really in the movie? Because I want to know. Oh, good thing I caught that. Okay. Gotta work on the little corner signage a little better. Mm, wouldn't fit where it could be seen for the shot. I was gonna put like a carving right here, like some random initials. Okay, okay, I think we've concluded forest hazards. All that's left after this is to get it all nice and glossy. Maybe run through, do a little more touch-up before then. But on the whole, I think we have concluded for the time. I hope everyone enjoyed my random ramblings about stuff that doesn't really fit together at all. I hope you have a good day.